Once a year we try to drive down to Italy in whatever electric car we've got at the time. So first we did it in the Kia e-Niro with a roof box, and then we did it in the Ioniq 5, and then in the Model 3, Tesla Model 3 that we hired from Onto. And this year we did it in the Peugeot e-208. This is a car that has about 180 mile range in the UK in summer. So obviously it will be far less than that driving at motorway speeds in Europe. So is that doable, or is it just complete masochism? Find out after the spinning logo. So instead of me standing in front of the car or sitting in the car and then probably baking, I thought I would bake in the back garden instead, since it's a beautiful day, and it will just remind me of going to Italy. So this is just a summary, okay? I've got 16 hours of footage to go through, and I'm not even halfway through yet, to be honest, but I'm trying to edit the full video, so that's going to be epic. And it's going to show every charger and every bit of me moaning in the car about Italian drivers. You get people right up your backside. But for now, this is just a little summary, okay? As I said in my first impressions video of the Peugeot e-208, we got the car from Onto for a couple of months. And the idea was that I would take it down to Italy as well. And I was a little bit apprehensive about that because we had the Renault Megane, which had a better range before that. And I was thinking, ooh, the Peugeot is going to take so many charge stops. And it's quite a small car, and we always have far too much luggage, so surely it's not going to be very good. But actually, I was pleasantly surprised. However, there was a real nightmare with driving, and we'll get to that later. So having a car on subscription and then taking it into Europe is something that a lot of people probably wouldn't even consider. So I just wanted to start the video really by going through a few of the costs involved, because I think that's obviously quite important. If you were deciding, well, you know, do we fly down, take the train or whatever else, or do we hire a car? You know, let's have a look at the subscription costs from Onto. So I'm just basing this on Onto because that's what we did. The Peugeot e-208, it was the Allure Premium spec, and that's £549 a month. And you can add charging with the Shell Recharge network for £40 a month. So add that onto there. There's quite a chunky cost involved with the drop-off and the collections. That's £259 in total. Then you've got to do that EU travel bolt-on, and that covers you for like the insurance and whatever else, and that's £70 for 1 to 14 days away, or £120 for 15 to 29 days. If you're new to Onto, then you have to have had the car for at least a month before you even request this, okay? And you have to request it for 7 business days before you go. If you've had an Onto subscription before in the past, then you don't have to go through that hassle if you've had it for at least 3 consecutive months, and then you don't have to have had the car for a month before you request the bolt-on. They send a certificate through the post, and this is just a certificate that you have to have legally when you travel into Europe. Let's assume that you want a 2-week journey into Europe like I did with the Peugeot e-208. That would be £1,507 in total. That includes the charging at Shell Recharge places. I say Shell Recharge, that covers you for loads, Ionity, Allego and loads of others. And you get 750 miles per month with Onto, so that's obviously 1,500 miles in total. That's how much your journey could be around Europe, but you can pay extra for more miles if you want to. So £1,507, but of course you'll use my referral code below, so that gets you £100 off. Thank you very much if you do that. So that makes it £1,407 in total for a Peugeot e-208 for 2 weeks in Europe. But of course you've got it for 2 months in total, but just 2 weeks in Europe. It's quite a big chunk of cash, of course. But I wanted to compare that with a traditional kind of hire company like Hertz. Well, Hertz don't allow you to hire a car in the UK and then take it into Europe, unfortunately. So I looked at Europcar, which, as the name suggests, they do allow that. Europcar, they do have electric cars, which is pretty cool. The only thing with Europcar is that you've got to get the Eurodrive pack, which costs a bit extra. Just as a test, I selected 2 weeks in July 2024. They've got the MG4 standard range and the Aura Funky Cat for £116.30 a day. That's £1,628.15 for 2 weeks. Plus the £180 you've got to pay for their Eurodrive pack to take it into Europe. So £1,808.15 in total. So that makes it actually £400 more expensive than Onto, and you don't get the free charging. With Onto's price, you also obviously get the car delivered and collected from your house, and of course you've got it for 2 months and not just 2 weeks. However, there's no mileage limit with Europcar, so you could drive around as much as you wanted, and that's absolutely fine. But of course with Onto there is a mileage limit, so just If you do need extra miles, then you'll have to add that into the price. So it was £300 for an extra 1,000 miles. So that's what I did, just to make sure I had enough to do the trip, because the trip was 2,300 and something miles, I think, in total. Obviously, you might feel that flying or taking the train is better for you, so just do the maths yourself. Obviously, I like the fact that it's an electric car, and I like driving EVs. I find them more relaxing. So, and it's nice to use up a little bit less carbon when travelling. Of course, my wife and daughter still flew, so it's negligible the amount we saved as a family. But anyway, if you're doing this and you've got a family that are happy to go on a nice drive, then it might work for you. That's enough waffle about the cost of it. Let's talk about the plan. So the plan was to start in Canterbury, where we live, and we're going to drive down to a place near Rome on the sea, which is where Flaviana's family have an apartment. So we're going to drive down to there, which is what we also have done previously. As I said, my wife and daughter flew, so actually I was driving the whole way myself. So the plan was that I would drive down there, and then we would all drive up to Tuscany, stay there for a couple of nights, and then go up to the mountains, go up to the Alps at a place called Bolzano, and we would stay there for a few nights. And then I would drop them off in Innsbruck in Austria, and then I would drive home. That was the plan. I used a Better Route Planner to plan the journey with all the charge stops, because a Better Route Planner is very good for doing that kind of thing. And I also used a website called Tronity, which you can connect up to the car, and that will tell a Better Route Planner what state of charge you've got in the car. So a Better Route Planner, if you're using CarPlay or Android Auto, a Better Route Planner can adjust your journey accordingly. It's got the green bars on there, so that suggests that it's actually connected to Tronity, and it says we'll get there with 35%. So that's pretty good. When it works. It doesn't always work. Tronity is a little bit glitchy in my experience. I don't think it's Tronity's fault. I think it's probably the Peugeot's server or something like that. Sometimes I just had to use a Better Route Planner when I stopped at a charger just to double check where it wanted to take me to. Having said all that, we're really not very far off not needing a plan at all, especially through France. Through France, pretty much guaranteed. I think every service station you stop at, I think you're pretty much guaranteed to get a charger there. They're really, really good, France now. Italy and Germany, not quite so good in that respect. I was quite surprised. I thought Germany would be much better, but it wasn't. There were still a few. I think you pretty much got a charger at every services, but sometimes it was just a single charger. And you really need like a decent little hub, because you want to get to somewhere and not worry about someone else using the one charger, right? Now, I don't like driving massive distances all in one go. I mean, it's just miserable, isn't it? So I chopped it up a little bit. I stayed in a couple of hotels on the way down, and then of course we had hotels on the way back up as well. So on the 25th of July I left Canterbury. I drove to Le Château in Folkestone, and I charged a couple of times throughout France. I kept charging with the Shell card, so I prioritise the charges that I can get with this, which is actually most of them, really. Most of them in Europe anyway. So I just popped into McDonald's to get a coffee and a couple of macarons. I haven't actually got time to finish my coffee, I know. And then I got to Aquina Hotel in Troyes. And I'm in wine country, right? Surely I would get a really good glass of wine. Yeah, it's not great. It's a beautiful day. Do that to unlock. And the hotels I stayed at had chargers, so I was able to wake up with pretty much 100% battery each time, so that was great. Then I charged 3 times on the next day.
Make a U-turn.
Yeah, shut up. So last time I was here, there weren't so many chargers, so that's great. So you've got those ones down there now. In fact, that's a kind of a long bay, isn't it? Which is good if you've got a caravan or towing something. Cool. Well, I've got my espresso. Quite excited. I forgot I've got a macaron. French motorway service areas are just so good. Look, if you're going to stretch your legs, then it's nice to stretch your legs in a beautiful place like this. So it says charging complete in 20 minutes. So that means it's 20 minutes to get 4% to 100%. It just shows you how slow it goes at this point. It also shows why there's no point really waiting around. Beautiful, eh? This next bit is quite a long stretch because of the traffic. It all goes a bit slow through Mont Blanc, so I've done my emergency pee. Okay, almost there, almost there. Here we go. Now we're going to see what kind of fluster I managed to get in, and whether I hit my head, hit my leg, hit my knee, fall over, drop the payment card on the floor, curb the alloy. Any number of different things could go wrong right now. Singolo. Grazie. Hopefully there's no traffic on the other side. And we have emerged. The hotel was 3T Boutique Hotel. Very fancy. I felt a bit out of place, really. It's a stunning hotel, this, actually. And it does have a sort of a restaurant as well, so that's good. Because I'm lazy. I mean, but I should explore, really. I might go out and explore a little bit. So apparently this is Castello di Ivrea. I probably could have guessed that, couldn't I? Okay, let's go this way. So I've walked up to see the castle, which is just there. First bit of exercise I've done in months, and I'm a bit out of breath. Good morning. It's a beautiful, it's quite fresh morning actually. There were 4 charges to get down to the apartment near Rome. I could have done it in 3 charges, but I wanted to top up quite close just to make sure we had enough battery to drive around and do whatever we needed to do. So I'm here at the beach, and now I think it's time for a cocktail. And it was all pretty easy actually. On the way down, it didn't start brilliantly well because the first charger a better route planner wanted to take me to was a place called Barral, and there was one charger that was out of action. It looks like one of them is broken, one of the high-speed ones is broken. I'm not going to bother with the 50 kilowatt one. The other charger was occupied with another person waiting for it, and there was a kind of slower charger, but there was so much more battery than a better route planner predicted that I was able to skip that and move on anyway. So that was one issue. There was an Ionity charger in Italy that just stopped for no reason at all. Oh, that's not good, is it? Must be an error. There was another charger stall I could go to there. There are 2 available, so I'll go there. Charging finished. Why? So let's give it another go. So there's charging again. We'll see how long this lasts. I've got enough charge just to get going. If it fails again, I'll just go. I'm going to get my coffee now. Still charging. Weird, isn't it? It's a 3rd time lucky. God, I've been walking around with espresso on my nose. But really, I had no issues with charging other than that. It was all pretty simple. So we drove up from Marina di Cerveteri to a place called Casale San Galgano, which is where we were staying in Tuscany, which is beautiful. Tuscany's like one of my dream places. The food there was just ridiculously good. So we charged a couple of times to get up to there, and again, that was all fine. So this hotel didn't have a charger actually. That was a bit of a shame, but it wasn't too big a deal really. We've had a wonderful stay at Casale San Galgano, and now we're going to go to north of Italy. We charged 3 times on the way up to Bolzano in the mountains, so that was all fine. When we got to the mountains, we ate, drank and walked far too much. It was as beautiful as always. I'm not scared. My hand is shaking. Partly because I think I'm going to drop my phone. Paradise. Good morning. Sadly, we're leaving the hotel today. We're leaving the mountains today. In fact, we're going to Innsbruck. I'm going to drop the girls off at the airport. Are you both sad to be leaving?
Yes.
Yes.
Boo England, boo.
Boo England, I know. They flew back and I did the low carbon route back to the long low carbon route back to England. I charged 3 times after dropping them off to get to the hotel in Germany, which was called Styles Hotel at Karlsruhe. Stayed there, charged overnight to 100%. Okay, I've checked out. Oh, lovely weather today. And after that, the trip was absolutely miserable. But it was not miserable because of it being an electric car or because of charging. It was just the weather and the traffic that was just awful. I've never driven in such bad conditions in my life. From Germany onwards, the weather was just appalling. And Europe's had pretty awful weather anyway this year, with crazy like landslides and massive hail and all this kind of tornadoes and stuff. It's been weird. In fact, the whole world has had terrible, terrible weather, hasn't it? But so it's particularly bad. Also because a lot of drivers are idiots. They drive so badly, they don't even put their lights on. So when I come to edit the video, it's going to be me moaning a lot about that. Driving too fast, oh God. It was a nightmare. It was actually a relief to stop and charge. It kind of took me up through Netherlands and then through Belgium and then down, which I thought was a bit weird. I don't know whether it was trying to avoid the tolls or maybe the weather was worse and it was trying to avoid that. I don't know. And then I get back home. But it was overall, it was all pretty easy really. Each charge was about 20 to 30 minutes. In a better route planner, you've got settings for everything. You can decide to either stop for longer or you can stop for less and you can do more charges. So I think I probably had it in the middle option, which is it does it as quick as you can. So it kind of you hop between one charger to another. So that's what I was doing. Also, I was prioritising chargers that were free for me with Onto, because that Shell recharge card is fantastic and the network is enormous, and pretty much every charger really you get to in Europe, you can use that card with it. So if you do get an Onto card, and you're going to go to Europe, add that free charging. Well, it's not free, is it? Add the charging for £40 a month, because it really, you will save a fortune. But it's possible if I wasn't doing that, and if I was less picky, well, if I was less tight really, and not trying to get free charges all the time, it's possible that the route would have been even quicker, because maybe there were some charges that I could have done instead. Also, by doing that, you miss out Tesla superchargers, and Tesla superchargers are brilliant. Not always in the best locations actually, but at least you're pretty much guaranteed a charger. I've never seen a queue at a Tesla supercharger. It does happen occasionally, but not often. So overall, it was a really good journey, and it's amazing how much easier it's getting every year. When we did the trip in the Ioniq 5 in 2022, obviously that was amazing because the charge speed was so good. You know, to get up to 80% in 18 minutes is properly amazing. The Peugeot does 80% in 30 minutes. The Nero did it in 44 minutes, so that just gives you an idea. The Ioniq 5 probably is amazing in that respect. It was charging too quick for me a lot of the time, to be honest. So this is the problem. I've gone in to get a sandwich, not even to eat it, to get a sandwich and a coffee to go to the toilet, and it's at 95% already. When we did it in the Model 3, obviously that was the easiest, I suppose, in terms of the route planning, because it tells you where to go, it does it all for you, and you always get to a stall, it's always available, tells you how much it's going to cost, all the rest of it. The whole Tesla experience is amazing, and whatever you think of Tesla's being a bit ugly and lacking buttons, which is a problem I have with them, and Elon Musk, if you have a problem with Elon Musk, whatever, put all that aside, Tesla is just the king when it comes to actually doing a route down somewhere without any pre-planning. Just tell it where you want to go and it goes. So in Model 3 that was fantastic. But all of that said, the Peugeot wasn't actually that bad at all. I mean, I don't think it was really any more stressful than any other time. Obviously it didn't charge that fast, but it was fine because I liked the brakes. I mean, we were stopping like about 1.5 hours, I think, in general, was the kind of the distance between each charger, which for a lot of you watching this, you might think, well, you know, I can do that trip on my diesel in one day, and, you know, I've only got to stop once for 5 minutes, and yes, that's true, but I really like stopping to stretch my legs and just not be stuck in the bloody car for hours on end. It's not fun driving that kind of distance without stopping, in my experience. So that's part of the reason I find the whole EV thing quite relaxing, really. It's just, I think it's a really good way of driving somewhere, and it does mean that because you are forced really to stop more regularly, then it does mean that you can decide to stop and stay at a hotel and just explore an area a little bit more. So it gives you that freedom, I think, to do that instead of just rushing down somewhere, which isn't so much fun. So in terms of a better route planner, obviously, as I said, it worked most of the time. It was actually very good with the navigation, far better than it used to be. It's amazing what difference it's made, and you can now click in it and it will tell you the next charger coming up. It will tell you your whole plan. It's really good. The whole Tronity thing, when it works, is great. When it doesn't, it's not so good. So the biggest stress for me really was traffic and weather. Mont Blanc was terrible. As I say, Germany was pretty awful. I've been stuck in this traffic for what seems like an hour. But generally, I find driving long distances in an EV is an absolute pleasure. One tip I would say is kind of plan to get to a charger with like 10% battery minimum. I would say try not to go less than that. You're just going to add a little bit of stress if there happens to be a massive queue, or if a charger for some reason is not working. That gives yourself a decent buffer. If you aim to get to a charger with 10% and it happens to be a bit less than that, you've still got enough range to get onto a different charger if you need to. So go for 10%. Don't be a hero and go for 0. It's not worth the stress. So some stats for you. It was 2,322 miles altogether. That's 3,737 kilometres. The average consumption was 3.62 miles per kilowatt hour. That's 17.16 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometres, if you prefer that. The average charge time was 23 minutes. Again, that's just doing top-ups. And I paid £40, 47 euros, £40 for charging. £21 of that was at that 3T boutique hotel. They actually charged €25 to charge overnight. I should have just said no, because that's ridiculous. But that's all I paid, because obviously the rest was all part of Onto. I charged a total of 501 kilowatt hours when I was rapid charging. It's difficult to work out the price without going through each one, and I'm not going to do that just yet because I haven't got time, but if you work out, it's 59 pence per kilowatt hour Ionity charge in France. So if you said 59 pence per kilowatt hour times 501 kilowatt hours, that would have been £295.60 I would have paid. But of course, instead, it was all included with On2. So that's it. That's the trip. And as I said, this is just a summary video. The second part of this really is going to be the full video, the epic video of me actually doing the driving, stopping, charging, and all the rest of it. And that's pretty good. And I'll go into more geeky detail with that. Most cars can't charge anywhere close to 350 kilowatts. So overall, it was all quite easy, really, I think. So if you've got any questions, do let me know. So I know I've skimmed over a lot there, but do press that subscribe button and the bell icon if you haven't already, and then you'll get notified when the full video comes along with me doing all the charging and doing all the moaning about Italian drivers and everything else. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll be back as soon as possible after I've gone through 16 hours of footage. 16 hours of footage. I go through so many hard drives, it's ridiculous.